Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed episode number 245. All praise the Great One.
All praise the Great One.
I'm the two-leg known as Keith.
I'm the two-leg known as Sean.
I'm the two-leg known as Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm sad I only have 2 legs.
It's not 8s. What are you going to do?
Glad I only have 2 legs. Sean would stand up and stomp on me if I had 8.
Probably. No, I would climb up on top of a chair and shriek and make Keith step on you. That's what we did when we lived together. It worked out quite well.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of spiders, so it works. You guys seen the new trailer?
No.
Really? Have you really not watched it?
I really have not watched it. I don't want to know.
You're avoiding it because you don't want to know.
Yeah,
it's 20 seconds long,
20.
and I don't think it gives anything away.
It kind of gives you an idea of what to expect for the first episode.
Yeah.
It very much focuses on the first episode.
It seems to verify something that Peter Capaldi said about an event that kicks off the season. That's really all it
and it kind of, if you've seen the official synopses for the first episode, it kind of lends to that.
Don't want to know.
The synopsis says barely anything as it is. So
I'm an official.
It's not much more than what
for
the
next
trailer
2 weeks.
gives you. So.
It's like Doctor Who's coming in 2 weeks. I'm good. That's all I need.
Well, since there's not much to say about that, since Sean didn't see it.
Oh, you guys talk about it all you want. I'll go in the other room.
No,
I'll play with
I
Cody.
think we said everything we said.
Pretty quick.
It's 20 seconds long, and it doesn't give anything away, but it kind of hints to something we're going to see.
Honestly, there were some things that I expected were later in the season and did not expect it in the...
After having seen the 2 trailers preceding this...
Yes, there's stuff in this that I thought, that was going to be spread out.
Yeah,
no, this is all in this episode.
All right here.
Especially certain creatures.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Another big thing that could be spoilers, but if you've been on the internet at all, you've been spoiled. River Song is coming back for Christmas.
Yay! Except...
I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't know how I feel about it either. Everybody I've seen is going, yay, 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 yay. And I'm going,
I look forward to seeing their chemistry, but I'm sorry, River's 11s. It's just the two of them together.
See, it's not even so much that for me. It's more of I really feel like we've done River's
and I feel
story.
like we're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's why I'm worried. Because we've done River's story, and it's over. And in the article that was posted, Stephen Moffat said, well, her story's over and done with. How can she come back? Well, as always, this is Doctor Who, and we find a way, blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but something in the phrasing made me go, oh, God. Do you remember when we talked about last Christmas, and we said, I hope to holy hell that season 9 is not all dream crabs induced.
Oh.
And if River Song is coming back at Christmas, it's entirely possible.
So here's the direct quote. Another Christmas, another special Doctor Who, and what could be more special than the return of Alex Kingston as Professor Riversong? The last time the Doctor saw her, she was a ghost. The first time he met her, she died. So how can he be seeing her again? As ever, with the most complicated relationship in the universe, it's a matter of time.
Which?
I hope not.
No, actually, that reassures me that maybe we're going to have a piece of River Song timeline, either between him meeting or she meeting him in help me, Let's Kill Hitler, and her demise in
it'd have to be because it's
Silence of the Library. Yeah, so that's why
it has to be in that time frame.
Well, but what I'm saying, yes, obviously. But what I'm thinking is that when he meets her there and she leaves him there, I'm hoping it's in her timeline somewhere and not a post in the computer like it was.
Okay,
I
see what you're saying. Yeah,
where she was able to come out and reach out because...
Yes, I hope it's actually her, not a projection.
Unfortunately, because they go into the little dream state in order to communicate and contact each other, and that's the reason why it lends more to Sean's fears that because he's asleep, she can contact him. But anyway, we'll see.
My first gut reaction was, are they doing this because Clara's going to be gone? That was my very first reaction of... I've seen no rumors, but... my first thought was, are they introducing a one-off companion, bringing back a one-off companion because Claire is not going to be there?
Kind of when Martha left and they brought in Donna.
Yeah. Well, Rose left and they brought in Donna. And then Martha came
Martha
on.
left and then they brought in Donna.
Well, no, Astrid was after.
No, Martha left.
Oh, and then they brought in... No.
Donna.
Oh, for season 4, not... So you mean the gap between...
Yeah, wait a minute.
So Astrid means...
Oh, you're right.
he's right.
Astrid was the replacement there. It would have been... Who left?
Rose left.
Rose, Donna.
Then Donna. But then Donna left.
Oh, that's
and Martha.
right. Okay, yeah. So
Then
when
Martha
Rose left,
and
then Donna.
Astrid.
You're right. I was
Yeah.
confused.
But it's still the same idea. Astrid
Yeah.
being the one-off companion
Right,
for the special.
right.
Yeah. So that was my first instinct. And then I honestly didn't think about the Dream Crab stuff until now.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. Welcome to my life. This is what I worry about and obsess over when I read spoilers, which is why I'm staying away from Star Wars. I don't want to know. Oh,
Kylo Ren looks so awesome.
Force Awakens, Act 1, Scene 1. Han falls out of the carbonite, wakes up and goes, wow, that was weird.
Been asleep longer than I thought.
The other thing...
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, River, I'm excited, and I agree with you. I think the chemistry between her and Capaldi is going to be phenomenal. I think it's just going to be great. But I hope it's done well. That's all I can come up with at this point.
Yeah. I'm apprehensive, but excited.
I think my other problem is, and it's not even a problem, but Big Finish just 2 months ago announced that, hey, we're getting River Song. We can continue her story. We're going to do some stuff, And then suddenly it was like, oh, we're bringing River Song back to TV. And so it almost in the back of my mind, almost cheapens what Big Finish is doing.
Well, and it was...
Because they're not done with their story, clearly.
Well, and it's kind of weird with the Big Finish stuff, too, because they announced the unit stuff, and then later they announced, well, yeah, we're going to bring Kate back in Series 9. Because they're doing the exact same thing there, too.
You're right.
Maybe they're letting Big
Kate
Finish...
announcement, and then we got the Kate announcement back in
Yeah.
Maybe they're letting Big Finish take the ball, so to speak, and then when the announcement is met with applause, they go,
Oh, well, okay.
all right, we're safe to do that. And if Big Finish comes out with something and people go,
I'd like to bend.
they're like, well, we're going to stay away from that one.
I'd like to bend the ears of the guys that are Big Finish and
Oh,
say,
yeah.
what do you think about
What do you
this?
think?
Whatever. Truthfully, what do you think about this? Not a sound bite. What do you really think about
Off the record.
The other thing about this, which I didn't think of Dream Crabs, but I did wonder, since the connection with Clara never closed in Name of the Doctor, I wondered if there's going to be some of that lingering over too, if Clara is in a Christmas special. And that's how she's coming back. That was the other thought I had.
Could be.
Because that was the only way she could stay connected was Clara was still,
Yeah, supposedly.
she was still connected to Clara. I don't know. Time will tell.
find-
We've
yeah.
still got 4 months, so we'll see.
I was kind of surprised that they were started filming it already.
Yeah. We'll
They
see.
just finished Series 9.
We'll see how it plays out. Well, they treat those in the production block. They treat
Yeah.
that as the 13th
Well,
episode.
and they started a
And so
little
it's
bit later,
budgeted.
and they're airing a little bit later this time,
and it's
too,
budgeted,
so-
so they had a Christmas episode to do, so they're doing it within
I just
their
remember
product.
last year there was a bit more of a gap, but then there was a couple months production
that's
extra
true.
in front of it, too. So.
That's true.
Our last bit of news, BBC Worldwide is going to release Underwater Menace.
Speaking of doing away with something and bringing it back,
Underwater Menace is coming out on DVD. So far, there's only a UK release date for October 26th, and the BBC have released no official details other than a pre-ordered release date.
however, Annika Wills on her website
Yes,
has. Do you have that in front of you?
I do have it in front of me.
So the details on that,
fully remastered episodes 2 and 3.
which are the 2 that exist in the archives, 2 being recovered just a few years back.
Commentary on episode 2 and 3, a traditional commentary with actors Annika Wills, Fraser Hines, and Brian Hodgson, Catherine Howe, and Quentin Mann, moderated by Toby Hadoke. Fishy Tales, a making of documentary, Tales of TV Center Part 2, program subtitles, subtitle production notes. And then other extras are to be confirmed, we think is what TBC stands for.
So, episodes 1 and 4,
We don't know.
We still don't know.
It could be a slice of the pie episode, like the Lost in Time stories, or they could be recons. They could have animated it. There's no official word from the BBC about it. That's the frustrating thing. Other than, hey, we're actually going to release it finally. Hopefully they're going to start saying when it gets closer to time.
That's what I'm kind of suspecting.
And I think the only reason anybody noticed was those who had pre-registered before, it popped back up for them. And that's how everyone got tipped off, because BBC never sent out a press release or anything about this story.
That's true.
It's all been based off of one pre-order date set.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Here we go.
Are you ready?
I think I know where this limb takes us.
We all know where this one takes us.
The tree of the Omni rumor bears much fruit. I think Moffat has done it to us again. In much the same way as we got a Great Intelligence reference in the season that was on TV when they found and then suddenly released Web of Fear. I think something in Underwater Menace may be coming back to haunt us in Season 9, and that's why all of a sudden it's back on the schedule. It would not surprise me at all if maybe Moffat is pushing BBC's hand here a little bit and found out that they had shelved it and then decided, all right, there. Now you have to release it because it's a tie-in. I don't know. Maybe not. The fact that they haven't said anything about 1 and 4 makes me really wonder why not.
Well, and the thing is, I think that I don't think that the missing episodes are there, and I don't think, from doing a lot of exhaustive research that Keith and I were doing before the show, I don't think it's been animated, because I think Planet 55, I don't think they ever got the project off the ground. I think what they're going to do is, if we get this, it won't be vanilla, fortunately, because it does have extras.
Because they pre-produced it before they canceled it.
Right.
And that's what we know. That's why we know what these extras are.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we get Episode 1 and Episode 4 in recon format, like they did with Web of Fear. I wouldn't be surprised if we get Telesnap, because they have audio. There is surviving audio for this. They'll either do that or they'll do a truncated, Marco Polo-ish type thing, where they just kind of truncate one, and they did for Ice Warriors on the VHS release.
Yeah,
and because since we have the other parts of it, we can go ahead and give you this. So
they might. My prediction is 1 and 4 will be probably the most likely is telesnaps, as they did with Web of Fear, because there wasn't a lot of complaints about that. People liked that. Now the difference is there were 5 episodes that they were managed to have survive, and only 1 missing still, so they were able to do that. So I think, based on the success of Web of Fear, I think they're looking at it going, you know what, we'll do our own recon of this. We'll use Telesnap, surviving audio, and we'll call it good.
Well, and I bet part of why, as opposed to some of the other 2-parters that they haven't released, because the one part was recently discovered and hasn't been released.
Never been released on DVD.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why we're starting to get this. I don't think it's going to be if this works, we're going to do other recons.
I don't think
we're going to
set
get
a
that
precedent for anything.
I don't think so. Which is unfortunate, because it'd be better to have a DVD recon.
I would rather have a DVD recon than nothing as well. Yeah.
I agree. As we've discussed before, the recons aren't necessarily our favorite way to watch Doctor Who, but it's much more palpable in Web of Fear to have 5 complete episodes and 1 in the middle.
Recon, yeah.
Or
and some of those
Ice
that
Warriors
are predominantly
that has 5 complete and 1 in the middle, because it's a 6-parter.
Ice Warriors had 2, and they were right in the middle.
Is it 2?
2, yeah, because they animated 2.
Because they didn't know. Yes, they animated 2, and
on
in the
DVD,
VHS release,
right? Okay,
they truncated those 2 together very cleverly. I mean, I think we all said, it was really neat how they did it.
That was one of the best recons I think we had done.
Recovered, data that they had.
But there's a difference between most of it being there, and here's the chunk that we don't have, but we're going to come up with a clever way to do it, and we're going to open with a recon, and close with a recon.
It's certainly a risk,
and have those
really
2 in the
is.
It's certainly a risk.
I mean, if this proves to be a success, it opens the possibility, but I don't think it definitely kicks open the door and says, yes, we're going to do more.
Well, the other problem that you run into is
a chance.
It's 2 and 2.
Yeah.
So I think there's only one other story arc out there that's in the same boat, and it's a Hartnell one, if I remember correctly, that has 2 surviving episodes and 2 missing episodes that they could even attempt to pull this off. Everything else is going to be, we have this 1 episode.
Yeah.
And we'd have to do...
Because everything else has been animated by this point.
So
the ones that are more like this.
So you've moved away from we just plugged the hole to now we're actually having to build the dam. Because we don't have anything but that one piece. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see one way or the other. I'm don't get me wrong. I am extremely grateful it's back on the schedule, regardless of what format it comes in, even if it is just a recon.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's on the schedule. Fantastic. We're going to get Underwater Menace.
Agreed. All right. Should we move on to feedback?
No, we have our Doctor Who Legacy.
Tip of the week.
Who Brannigan actually pointed us to this. Tip of the week for Traveling the Vortex. Listen to the latest Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So many tips about this in this episode.
Have either of you guys had a chance to listen?
I have not had a chance
I
to
haven't
listen
either.
to it.
I got so far behind this.
And actually, at this point, as of recording, I think you have to go 2 back. Because I think they released one yesterday.
I think one was released yesterday.
So
you're right.
They did a whole episode based all around Doctor Who Legacy.
Yeah, so be sure
Last
you
week,
be
so.
sure you go find that. Do you have the episode number?
I'm trying to pull it up now.
Okay. So I'm going to be 2 behind on the Fangirls. Sorry, ladies. Also, I'll take this moment to mention that they did release their schedule for Star Wars with Friends. I think I put that on our Facebook page. Be sure to go check out that schedule if you want to do Star Wars with Friends with us. I think it starts later this month, and we are watching the original theatrical versions, but depending on what you've got, just watch along with whatever you got. So I'm excited for that.
It's episode number 59. May the gems be ever in your favor.
Yes. So that was actually a good tip for us because none of us have listened to it. Now we will.
Yes.
Go back and find all those tips.
And that's your Doctor Who Legacy.
Tip of the week.
All right. Our first bit of feedback comes from Dr. Phil.
Let's give it a listen.
Hello, Vortexans. Hey, it's Dr. Phil, and happy birthday, Keith, and happy birthday. Thank you for the birthday wishes to me, too. Anyway, I'm just sending in kind of feedback about Planet of the Spiders. Why? Well, because I had a whole musical segment at home, which probably isn't going to make it into the show, on Planet of the Spiders. Because I didn't have a chance to edit it to send it in. But anyway, my main thing that makes me upset about Planet of the Spiders has more to do with Robot than Planet of the Spiders. Is I think the closing scene of Planet of the Spiders is so good. No matter what you think of the story, good or ill, I think that last scene is very moving. And I wish more of it had been included at the beginning of Robot. I know it's really self-indulgent, but it's, I know it's a beginning, but darn it, I wanted more of that Pertwee ending. The thing I love about Series 11 is it kind of fills me in the same sense of hope that Series 18 did, in a way. The really cool, spiffy title sequence, and I think in a way is better with Pertwee than with Baker. Sacrilege, I know, but there's something that's kind of like the magic of what could have been with a continued Pertwee and Sarah, even though I love Series 12 and Series 18 are 2 of my favorites. But it's with a new title sequence that makes me really excited about what the possibilities are in the future with Doctor Who in multiple eras. But those are 2 moments in which my excitement was just through the roof. Planet of the Spiders, I'll leave it to you guys to say what works well and what doesn't in Planet of the Spiders. Although I do think Mike Yates gets a very good redemption in this story. I think Pertwee gives a good performance. I think the end is great. There's probably a number of things we forgive because it's Pertwee's last story. Just like I'm sure there are lots of things we can forgive when Legopolis is Baker's last story. We don't have to forgive anything when it comes to Caves of Androzani, except for that all the male characters die in that one. But anyway, well, now that you guys have not already talked about Androzani anyway, but just caught up with, I think, about 2 months worth of Traveling the Vortex. I just binge listened to 2 months worth, and so sorry to have been behind, a bit wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. One thing you guys will appreciate, because I've been taking over a workshop that's coming up in Chicago in May of next year, Memorial Day weekend, is that we're going to do a survey of one genre of composition that you only find on Gambas, which is called the Anomone, from Taverner to Purcell. All the period pieces are going to be in chronological order by composer's birth year. All the contemporary settings are going to be backwards in order of the birth year of the composer. So I went for a little river song on that one. No one will quite get it outside of people like myself. But, I've got a Gamba recital coming up at my university on the 11th of September called it the Twilight Kingdom after a Big Finish audio. I don't think anyone's going to get that reference either. But anyway, just on those little bit of geekiness, lots of love to the Vortex, and glad that Keith, that you and Sarah are okay after the car accident. Those can be very, very scary, and very scary for a while afterwards. So anyway, lots of love to you guys as always, and keep up the great work. Okay. And I'm sorry I missed some of the Evelyn and 6. Anyway, but more later.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Thanks, Dr. Phil.
There's a little bit of behind-the-scenes secrets we're going to divulge to you here. Dr. Phil actually sent this audio last week thinking we were reviewing Planet of Spiders. So we decided to hold off and play it this week. And then this week, Dr. Phil sent another piece of audio. So let's give that a listen.
Hey, Dr. Phil again, finally timey-wimey in the right place. Responding to your last episode when you're listening to the Fifth Doctor audios, the Council of Nicaea. What's funny is I've listened to all of the Fifth Doctor Perry Aramim stories, and they're not ones I tend to go back and revisit. It's probably because I'm not a fan of Fifth Doctor in audio. I'm not exactly sure why, it's just probably my taste. But one of the things that connects that story to especially the historical event, to the modern day, is in Catholic churches, you still have the recitation in the Mass of the Nicene Creed every week. It's so central. So even when you spend time at conservatory studying music history, you spend like at least a month just on the Mass, because of course the earliest written music tends to be church music because it's an institution that survived after Rome fell. So the Mass, the credo, the creed. So whenever you hear masses composed, they will have the parts of the Mass called the ordinary that are consistent from week to week to week to week, and the credo is always, of course, said every week. So there you go, a little musical connection to your Doctor Who story of the past week. Also, because of that story, I highly recommend a podcast called 12 Byzantine Emperors. Now that sounds really dry, but it isn't. The host, that's only about, I think, 18 or 19 podcasts, less than 15 minutes each, focusing on different rulers from before the split of the Western and Eastern Roman empires. So before Constantine, all the way through the last emperor of Constantinople, who was also a Constantine. So, and it's if anyone who likes to play drinking games, when they listen to podcasts, every time the host says coup de grace before someone conquers another army, that's one to take a shot. And another moment to take a shot is when he says and he was blinded to death, because it seems like it was a particular execution or torture done by the Byzantines in their history. So anyway, a little bit of a gruesome note there. Sorry. But anyway, looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Planet of the Spiders. I already said my comments and my other feedback, but keep up the great work. Looking forward to Series 9. I'm not sure if I'll actually get to see the Series 8 finale in the theaters. I teach really late on Tuesday nights, and that seems like it's a Tuesday night, so I have to see what the showing are. But fingers crossed, because I would love to see that in 3D. So anyway, take care, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Thanks, Dr. Phil.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
He talked about the Nicene Creed, and I forgot to bring that up last week when we were talking, because that is, still said today in the Catholic Church, and especially it's said every week in I think it's the Episcopalian or Evangelican Church, still says it week to week. And I was familiar with it because even some of the denominations that splintered off from Catholicism, in the Methodist Church, it was always in the back of our hymnal, and about twice a year we always recited the Nicene Creed. So, that comes from that. So it's not just the Catholics that still holds a place in a lot of Christianity. And
Episcopalians do that as well.
Episcopalians, I think the other one.
Of course, they're shades of
they're
Catholic.
shades of, them and Lutheran, they're all kind of shades of Catholicism. They're probably the closest, least removed, especially Episcopalian. That still exists as well. So that comes from that. All right.
And good to hear from you, Dr. Phil.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for the review. And I'm going to actually check out the podcast that he was referring to, even though it sounds very dry from the title. It sounds very interesting from his description of it.
Our next bit of feedback comes from Chrissy. Chrissy writes, don't drive and concentrate. Dear Vortex boys, phew! I finally had time to catch up with you guys. This summer's been super busy, and you all probably thought I fell off the face of the planet. Not that you necessarily need me to check in. You know how to run a quality podcast.
Aww.
Number one, so glad to hear that Keith and Sarah made it out of their accident relatively okay and that Sarah's on the mend. Your experience has now caused me to look 2 or 3 times at intersections, if that's any consolation. Us too, Chrissy. Us true. Also, Cody is a real cutie.
You especially.
Me especially. Congrats on the addition to your family. That was mood whiplash, wasn't it? And thank you again, Chrissy. Number 2, I enjoyed hearing all of your Big Finish reviews, but for the most part, I want to say I really enjoyed Medicinal Purposes a lot more than you 3 seem to. But that's just a matter of different taste, I guess. I am glad someone finally mentioned that David Tennant played that Jamie. I kept waiting for one of you 3 to say something. I was nearly screaming at my iPhone listening to your discretion. Number 3, reviews. 4 Doctors comic. I've been reading these from week to week, and it's been a lot of fun. It's fairly standard multi-doctor story so far. A simple story, give the different doctors and companions a chance to interact. There's an old school villain, but this one has a timey-wimey twist. I do like how it's incorporated the different timelines. That is a possibility that rarely gets explored in Doctor Who. But, now I'm just waiting to see how the War Doctor works into all of this. We really haven't seen him much. Then again, it wouldn't be a multi-doctor story if one of the doctors who was supposed to be here barely had a cameo appearance. Planet of the Spiders. The day after we finished this story for Friday Night Who, I posted this video by one of Doctor Who fan pages on Facebook, and it made me laugh, mostly because of the coincidence of having finished that story. It's Terrence Dix talking about the Doctor's speech about having greed for knowledge and how he felt about the Doctor admitting such a flaw. Basically, Terrence said the idea was rubbish to him and he didn't feel strongly enough about it to argue for its removal. So there's that. Overall, this is a fantastic story. It trucks along very nicely and has an engaging and entertaining plotline. It's also fitting that nearly everyone from the Third Doctor's era makes an appearance or at least mentioned in some way, which is nice since it's his last outing. Honestly, I thought the Doctor could have survived the blue crystals. He probably would have if John Pertwee had wanted to continue being the Doctor. Well, that's neither here nor there. I like that while this feels like 2 stories spliced together, the 2 pieces fit quite seamlessly together. Sometimes, when this happens, the connections aren't very strong, but the connections between what's happening on Earth and what's going on in Mid-Abyss are linked tightly together. I mentioned it on Friday Night Who, but it bears repeating. I believe this means that I've watched all of the available classic Who stories at least once. I didn't realize it until I looked up the list, but I've watched them all now. Planet of the Spiders was the last one I had left to see, so that's quite a milestone. I couldn't begin to describe them all in any great detail. Well, maybe the 5th Doctor's episodes. But still, I feel like I should get a badge of fandom excellence or something. Winky face. That's it for this week. Hopefully I'll be back next week with more. Until next time, Chrissy. P.S. Shameless plug for the Star Wars with Friends Suite-Along that we, 5-ish fangirls, are running in the lead up to The Force Awakens. Starts on September 26th with The Phantom Menace. And we'll include a link to that also. It's on our Facebook already, but we will include it in the show notes, as well as the video she referenced. Thank you, Chrissy. Good to hear from you.
And we will have your fan badge of excellence out in the mail to you shortly. A little gold star that says, I've seen every available episode.
Is it going to look like Adric's?
It will look exactly like Adric's.
Just not crash.
It will be gold foil. Since we're on a budget. But you will have to mail it back to us once Underwater Menace is released. And then you can have it back afterwards, because obviously you won't have seen that one. So.
Up next in feedback is Holly.
Hang on, didn't she mean she'd seen all of?
No, she meant
everything.
She initially
watched all of available classic Who. Okay,
in the Twitter stream, she initially said this was her last Third Doctor story, and then she later corrected herself, saying it was the last those surviving
of the surviving stuff. Okay.
Which I think, Chrissy, I don't mean to mock your accomplishment by any stretch of the imagination, because it is quite the accomplishment when you consider 50 years of Doctor Who. But also,
I haven't got there yet.
From the standpoint that
I think
You're
It's
a
also-
relatively recent fan.
Yeah.
I mean, comparatively to like
Yeah.
myself or Glenn, and I still haven't seen everything.
I think I have now seen everything. That not with Planet of Spiders because I had seen it before, but now that I think about it,
With Curse of
well, I went back. Yeah, with Curse of
Curse of
Fenric
Fenric, I
would have
think,
been
was your
my
last one.
one of everything available that I hadn't seen. Because I've actually now had to delve back into the recons because when I read The Miserable Git, Neil's Volume 1 of Wife in Space, I had seen everything Hartnell, and I had seen everything. Yeah, so I'm actually in the same boat now. Curse of Fenric was my last of everything available to see. So
Well, then you get a gold star too. Which
I'll
will-
wear it for a week, then send
then,
it on.
then have
to
to
Chrissy.
give. Well, you'll have to give it back when it's Underwater Menace comes.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Holly, right?
Yes. Oh,
All right, it's Planet of the Spiders. Hey guys, hope that everyone had a great holiday weekend. A little bit of housekeeping this month for the book of the Traveling the Vortex book club is The Shadow in the Glass, a Sixth Doctor and the Brigadier story.
Well, that just elevated it on my list of things because I thought I've been so far behind on the book club. I tried to start the Roundheads. I got 2 chapters into the silly thing, and it just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. I put it down with every intention to go back to it, and I didn't. And now this one's out, and I thought, well, I'll just put this one on hold. But now that I find out that the Brigadier's in it, maybe I'll pick it back up.
I still have yet
Maybe I'll
to,
pick it up.
to post my review of the...
War Machines?
No, I still haven't read that one.
Engines of War.
Engines of War. War Machines.
I
TV story.
I still haven't read that one either. What was the last one?
The Brig book?
The Brig book.
Oh, Forgotten
Son.
I reviewed it here, but I haven't actually posted my review on Goodreads. That's
Can
how
you
far
attach
behind I
an
am.
audio?
Oh, that's a link coming.
Link to the episode.
Listen to all my thoughts here. So yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well with the link to the book club, which we hope that somebody is. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the book club, so
Yeah.
get a chance to follow along with that. And it is September, so Shadow in the Glass. And speaking of the Brigadierin unit, the Planet of the Spiders. Man, what an episode. We get people possessed by telepathic spiders. We see Bessie, the Whomobile, some Venusian Aikido, and we also say goodbye to the Third Doctor. I really feel for Sarah Jane in this one. She gets possessed by one of the spiders, and not to mention the fact there's nothing she can do to save her doctor. I'm wondering if the Great One that the spiders mentioned isn't that of the Great Intelligence. Just the whole imagery with the webs and thoughts being controlled. No robots this time, though. It's just a thought. I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to hearing everyone else's thoughts on this story. Holly from Wisconsin.
I think Chrissy and somebody else on Friday Night Who had brought
Dan.
that up. Dan had brought that up, that was their theory, that was the Great Intelligence.
It's interesting, too, even going back, because this happened to be one of those episodes that I hadn't seen all of. I'd seen bits and pieces of it, because there's spiders in it. But,
Of course you avoided it.
I avoided it. And
Really fake spider.
it didn't matter. When they
You have arachnophobia like Sean
when they
does, it doesn't
sit there
matter.
and they do, that doesn't bother me. It's when they do that scuttle across the floor business.
Even though their legs don't actually move.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Not to mention they're poorly chroma keyed into those shots, too.
No, that one was really good. That first one. The
Okay.
first one in the
It looked like it was on a string, but it was it wasn't chroma key, and they just drug it across the floor with it.
We're going to review this, so
It
get to the
looked
point.
just like that tumbleweed
Get
I
to
shot.
the point. Get to the point. I forgot about that.
I don't remember what I was saying now.
About the Great Intelligence.
Oh, yeah, that a lot of people brought that. And now having seen this, it's like,
Almost fit.
yeah, I can buy this. I mean, you could retcon it in there.
No, not me. It was
Be hard to do.
It was the Great One. It was an A-Leg. It wasn't the Great Intelligence.
It was actually.
I can
Oh,
see-
hail the
actually
great
a-
one.
I
Human
can see
spider.
where they're coming from, but I didn't. Even after they said it, I thought, no, it's the Great One.
It's similar ideas.
It's the leader of all the spiders.
The great
It's the
intelligence
spider
could be
god.
possessing the spider.
It's the spider god.
He did live in a pyramid-shaped mountain.
Had that been brought
she
to
did live in a pyramid-shaped
had that been
mountain.
brought to the attention in Forgotten Son, I'd have gone retconned. But
well, it still might
just
happen.
because
You never
people
know.
are speculating, I still can't buy that. All right.
Well, that's it in feedback. The planets of the Spiders. At a Tibetan retreat in the English countryside, a group of men are using ancient meditation rituals to tap into a mysterious alien power. They unwittingly create a bridgehead between Earth and Metabolus 3, a planet where the two legs are oppressed by giant spiders. The creatures are desperate to recover the blue jewel that the Doctor gave Joe Grant as a wedding gift. Now, the Doctor must risk everything and return to Metabolus 3 to face the awesome power of the Great One, who plans to use the crystal to enslave all of humankind. Dun, dun, dun!
This was a good one.
I quite enjoyed this. Well, this is probably my, I don't know, fourth, fifth viewing of this one because I like it, but it's good.
I may have one story left to go in the Third Doctor's run, but I think this one might be, for me, the most representative. Because there's so much in here that encompasses his run with the unit stuff at the very beginning, the epic chase, then going to a whole nother planet, Sarah Jane getting kidnapped and hijacked, the Doctor getting kidnapped and incapacitated and captured, and then just it all coming together at the end it works so well for me.
I think that was probably the intent, knowing that this was Pertwee's last story, is they said, okay, what can we put in here that really epitomizes everything that he does? From getting Joe's name drop in there, I think it was kind of a sad thing that they didn't say anything about Liz Shaw.
Yeah.
But, and yeah, like you said, the chase scene, the Whomobile, Bessie, everything being in there, and just kind of throwing everything with the kitchen sink, but still having a pretty decent, coherent story.
Yeah. More coherent than some of his other ones, actually.
I think they're all relatively coherent, but this one's solid. I think this story's not without its problems, but overall, it's a fun, enjoyable story, and the issues that it has are very far and few between.
Yeah, despite the tonal change somewhat, because we're kind of stitching together two different stories. It's a solid one throughout, and being able to put those two different pieces together, I think, is done better than a lot of the Third Doctor's era stuff.
Well, I think what happens is as you watch this one, I think where the first place it goes wrong, but then it fixes itself, is the fact that it does feel like two different stories. We've got all of this stuff that's happening on Earth. We've got this one spider that's trying to overthrow the Queen, and she comes across. And we've got all this stuff going on in the monastery. And it's not a monastery. It's a retreat. Or whatever. Tibetan retreat. Meditation retreat. And so you've got all this stuff that's going on.
Does anybody know, was it the unit house?
It did not look like a unit
house. You didn't think it looked like a unit house?
I don't think it looked like... Not even from the few exteriors we see of it. I don't think.
I mean, not from the exterior.
You mean the same house they use for
right.
a unit? Yeah, no,
the interiors didn't look.
I don't even think the interiors are the same. Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I think that would have been a challenge had they tried to do that. They'd really had to rearrange the sets a bit because we had some stuff going on at Unit. Now, granted, everything that was going on at Unit was right there in the Doctor's lab, but anyway, I think it has all that stuff going on Earth, and then suddenly we take this turn and we add in this tribe of two legs, and we show up on Metabolus 3, and we've got all of this going on, and suddenly we've taken a different tone and well, it's not even a different tone, because I think the tone doesn't change. But we've got this whole different location and setting and a new part of the story, halfway through this thing. And so you're kind of going, okay, what's going on here? And so they have to kind of tell that story and introduce us to these characters. But I think what it does well is it continues to loop back to what's going on at the house on Earth, with the spiders coming back over to start their invasion, taking over the other members of that little cult that was, trying to bring the manifestation in the first place. And then the whole storyline with Tommy, who's now got the crystal, and he's starting to, I always want to say cure, but he's not really curing, but he's kind of normalizing.
His mental.
Yeah, he's gone from being having a mental challenge or a mental difficulty to kind of normalizing, and then at one point kind of having a little bit of superhuman endowed strength there against the spiders.
I think this is one story where the 6 parts work to its advantage, because you have episode 1, which is setup, episode 6 is resolution, and then you have 2 and 3 set at the monastery, 4 and 5 set on Metabolus, and so it helps balance everything very well. the structuring just works.
It does, and everything kind of falls into place eventually. And like I say, with the exception of that, what feels like a left turn at first, and then going, well, you knew you were going to Metabilius 3 at some point. I mean, you just know he's got to go there because that's where the other side of the action is happening. But it's such an abrupt turn there in the middle, and we've already and now we've suddenly introduced all these new characters, and so it's one of those things that after you've seen the sum of the whole, it's like, okay, this totally works and makes sense. But it's at that point when you're watching it that you're going, where are we going with this?
I wonder how much of it helps from the standpoint, because I've seen parts of this one, but never one all-inclusive sitting. Since we did this for Friday Night Who and broke it up into 3 parts and did 2 parts, and did the first 3 and then the second 3, and that's where that division happens. As he gets to Metabilis right at the end of part 3, and then part 4 is set pretty much exclusively in the village of the Two Legs. I wonder how much that kind of helps gloss over that transition. Maybe
I think it does
a little bit better, since I'm sure you've watched this all in one sitting at one point in time.
A few times, yeah.
Is it a little more jarring when you're going from, because it starts off, it's a pretty standard unit story, really. I mean, we're on Earth, we've got the brig, we've got unit, we've got this stuff going on, and then, Lupton shows up, who's an amazing villain. I love it.
I liked him, too.
He's just great, because he's not the power-mad megalomaniac. I mean, yes, he is.
He is, but
he's wanting more power. He's wanting this.
He's not stereotypical.
Exactly.
He's not the mustache twirling.
Well, he's not a Bond villain.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not the master. He's just out here. He's a guy. I mean, for all we know, he's a used car salesman. But he sees an opportunity, and through the spider's influence, is willing to take it. Okay, cool. Let's go with that. And then you get that awesome chase scene, probably the best ever committed film in part 2. Where you've got all those, things going on, and then you get into part 3, and we're kind of still dealing with this things coming to Earth, third Doctor template. But then we leave and go to Metabilis, which is kind of what the latter half of his run, encapsulated. But then you're off world for the rest of it. So I wonder if that maybe is part of the. Is that more jarring sitting down and watching it all at once versus how we did it, breaking it up? And
it might be, and I think the reason that's why I continue after, I think I've seen this at least 3 times, and I think this week was my 4th viewing of this, and I've always sat down and watched it at once, and I think that's probably why that part sticks in my head every time that. Well, we take this left turn. Even after 4 viewings, I haven't got used to the fact that boom, suddenly now we're doing this and we're introduced to new characters, and so it's always real obvious to me. So I wonder if maybe you're right that doing it all in one setting, because you've got this one coherent story going on, that it's really noticeable. But then, like you say, breaking it up, maybe that does kind of soften that, because because I missed Friday Night Who last week, so I even watched it near close together, wasn't one setting, but I broke it up, but it was within the same day. So because I watched it the morning before I went to work, the first 3 parts, so I could catch up and then watch the rest of them with you guys. So you might be onto something there.
Oh, and so many of his other ones where they make it that left turn or the tonal shift aren't always halfway through. They're the first either switches from 2 to 4 or 4 to 2, and it's that jarring where we've always talked like Time Monster, we should have split up 4 and 2 instead of 3 and 3.
Yeah.
And this isn't that way at all.
No, but I think what helps
it's an equilibrium. It's a balance.
But I think what helps that is that we do continue to focus on what's going on back at the house, and then it's when the Doctor and Sarah get back that we're introduced to the Time Lord, and I can't remember the guy's name. Not Cho Chi, but the
the actual.
They're the same guy. Starts with a K.
Low Plan.
I'm trying to find it.
He's trying to find the name. Anyway,
Campo.
Yeah. So then we're introduced to Campo, and which is another weird thing, because I don't recall them ever saying that there was this guy there. I thought it was just. Now I just forgot the other guy's name.
Choji.
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 Okay, Choji.
I think it's Gi.
Gi. Yeah, Chogi.
Chogi.
That doesn't sound right either. Plo Koon. No. Okay. Anyway, you just kind of get the impression that he's kind of like the guy in charge, and then all of a sudden there's this other guy, which I think is
this random Time Lord.
I think it's supposed to be kind of maybe a surprise reveal, because we're then going to give you the even further surprise reveal that he's a Time Lord. But I wonder if that's a calculated effort so that they don't tip their hand too soon, or if that's something in the writing process that they said, hey, this would be kind of cool. So,
well, wasn't it you tweeting out that originally it was supposed to be a master story before Delgado passed away? So I wonder if they just substituted a different Time Lord for what the script was going to have the master be. Like, the master would have been the guy in the monastery waiting for the
I get
invasion.
the impression that the master probably would have been Lytton, Character.
Lupton.
Lupton. Lipton.
He's a lot
Iced
like
tea.
Lipton. Lytton. Boy, we're just names galore tonight. The original, I don't know how much of it carried over, but the original concept piece was that this was to be the Master's last story, since Pertwee was being written out. While he was leaving. And so they were going to do away with the Master as well. And as the events of the story unfolded, at the end of it, the Master would have sacrificed himself to save the Doctor and trigger the regeneration. And then when Roger Delgado passed, Terrence Dicks decided he really wasn't thrilled with doing that anyway. And so they go do something else. And borrowed elements of the original script for this one, but it's not clear how much of it is actually. I'm sure somewhere in the annals of Doctor history there is probably a book that talks about that, but nothing in my research indicated exactly how much survived from the original story. But it's entirely possible that that was part of it,
but it was
at least
an
an
draft
influence of
script
it.
anyway. Yeah.
I found the Time Lord inclusion at the end interesting, but slightly head scratching. It felt very left field. I know it was supposed to be a big reveal, a big surprise, but I just didn't quite understand why he was there and what he was doing. Why was he helping these humans bring the spiders over? Like, I didn't understand his motivations at all. So that's a part of it that kind of fell flat a little bit for me. Although I did really appreciate the fact that he was there to show essentially a regeneration to Sarah Jane before the Doctor did it, and then was able to be the audience surrogate and explain what was going to happen, since, the first time mentioning it and assorted history with who knows how many of the people watching it during Pertwee's era would not have seen the first Doctor's regeneration or the transition into Pertwee.
Well, that's another thing is we saw one regeneration on screen already, but it had been years prior, and that would have been Hartnell into...
And that one we wound up losing.
Right. Hartnell into Troughton. But then with Troughton's regeneration, he goes spinning off into, the background in the end of the War Games.
The multiple faces.
Yeah, and then at the beginning, the following season, stumbles out of the TARDIS as John Pertwee, so you don't even see that regeneration. Yeah. So this is the first time that regeneration is actually called regeneration in the series as well. And so
it's a big moment.
I think that this was, and Terrence Dicks wrote this, right? Is that what we determined?
No.
Robert Sloman.
Okay, so Robert Sloman, I think he felt it necessary to have a device to kind of explain that process, and I think that's where that comes down. That's the whole
reason why it was in there.
The interesting thing is, and I tweeted this out, it was a bit spoilery, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it really kind of brought my attention to something that we see later in Doctor Who that I think actually fixes a problem I had with a particular episode that we're gonna see later. So there was kind of an aha moment when I watched it, which is funny because I've seen this several times, and then to see it this time, it just kind of clicked, and I went, "Oh, wait a minute! This is kind of the same concept of something that I have a problem with later with a regeneration." So
I imagine probably a majority of our audience is going, "Aha! Yeah." we're keeping that one under wraps for Keith's sake, because we've not gotten to it yet.
I saw the tweet to know what it was in reference to, but didn't understand it.
Yes. Yeah. As with many things. We put it right out there and just kind of hoped that it went over his head.
I smiled and nodded and saw it fly over by.
I think when we watch it, then I think you'll even maybe you might figure something out early, especially since I think you've seen clips of the regeneration. But
Not as much as you would think.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of clips, I had no idea the regeneration was as big a deal as it was.
And how much they cut out, like
Yeah.
Dr. Phil talked about.
Because I've only, of the story that I had seen, I had not seen that part of it. I'd only seen it on the robot end, where it's heavily truncated. And so I didn't realize that was... I was all set. I had my, I had my computer, my tissues, I'm ready to go. And, a tear Sarah Jane. And then this is going to happen. And then it didn't. For a long time. And they just kind of threw off my groove. But it's cool. I kind of wish that it made it in there.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I found interesting is, and I was chatting with somebody on Twitter on Friday night who actually lives in the UK that I follow, and he follows me. And I had made the comment about how I wonder how many people knew that John Pertwee was leaving the show and they were going to bring another doctor in. And I kind of wondered if, at the midpoint where the doctor's zapped and he's dying, I wonder how many people thought, oh, this is it. This is the end. And
No, I sure did.
and you said you thought perhaps he was going to be comatose.
Yeah, just like laying there in a bed for the next 3 episodes, and I was going to be very disappointed.
So I wonder how many people saw that and thought, for them, not having seen it at all, first time viewing, first time aired, thought, oh, next week's the regeneration, but it actually ends up being 2 more weeks. Because I don't know if, now they can't make a change on Doctor Who without it getting out there. In fact,
There's no way to do a
they don't even
surprise.
they don't even try to hide some of those things. They already make the announcement, early on if somebody's coming up, and there's rumor control and everything. But I wonder how much of that happened with the Radio Times, saying, the Doctor, they're changing. I don't think it would have been as much information, but the Radio Times may have at one point said, here's what's happening. And so when that happens, it's one of those things I thought, I wonder. And one of the guy that I was chatting with in the UK said, as a 12-year-old lad, I thought that was it. But he did not know ahead of time that there was going to be. He just thought that this is bad.
Yeah.
So the other thing I find interesting about this is, and one of the problems with it for me is that at the end of this, when the third Doctor's in the chamber with the Great One, and the Great One puts the Metabilius crystal with the last one into place, and she's about to, expand her mind and take over the galaxy, whatever grand plan she had to go, and then she overloads, and basically the mountain explodes. And he runs off, gets in the TARDIS. And then we cut to 3 weeks later. And that's always been sort of weird to me, because I don't understand what the point of having him in the TARDIS lost in the vortex for, it could have been a long time, but 3 weeks to our perspective.
At least on Earth, from Sarah Jane's perspective.
And showing up, and why couldn't it have just been him coming straight back? And I think for me, the scene would have worked better if he had come straight back and came out of the TARDIS as though nothing was wrong. And then, as he's going over to his workbench to start on something or work on a project, he kind of does that little falter, falls down a little bit, and he catches himself, and Sarah comes over, everything okay? And then throughout the progression of that scene, he continues to get worse, and then finally falls down. I just think that would have worked better for me. It just seems unnecessary that he's lost in the vortex for 3 weeks, and you don't know how sick he is from the beginning. If he gets sick
doesn't
over
seem
the
that bad
over the
when he
course
gets into the TARDIS.
Exactly,
Yeah.
he goes running in there. I think what it does. Well, the good thing it does is it gives, now that Big Finish is going back and doing Third Doctor stories now, it gives them a little window, because it doesn't necessarily say he was in the vortex for 3 weeks.
That's true.
But, it's 3 weeks from Sarah Jane and the Briggs perspective. So, but I just said that seems weird that they structured it that way, and it doesn't seem like there's a reason for them to do it, I guess is my issue with it.
He went on a farewell tour.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He can say goodbye to
It's
all the previous companions.
understandable when 10 does it in the end of time, but
Not really.
no, I did.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still love that montage.
Yeah,
It's
I do
very,
too.
oh.
But it really feels like
But when you step,
heartstring.
it's a
all that
calculated one too, because in the moment it's fantastic. But when you step away from it and look back at it, you're going, "We didn't need this."
One of the high points of this story, I think, or one of the high marks for it, is the editing in it. Some of the editing surprised me thoroughly, including the stuff that didn't wind up in Robot. But also, going back an episode before that, we get this cliffhanger, and then we come back to the episode, and then they inserted all this other stuff before the actual cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
They re-edited
from 5 to 6.
Yeah, from
On the
5 to 6.
recap, which is funny because all of the other recaps just recap,
Yeah.
which they're all long recaps, but they just recap the events that we saw in the
As
last
you expect.
episode.
And I can't think of any other time in Classic Who, I'm probably wrong, but I can't think of any other major time where there was that much filling in a gap of, oh, nope, we pulled the cliffhanger from 10 minutes into the episode instead of...
It seems like it happens that way in Dragonfire at one point. We see a little more than we got to see prior to, and I think it's the actual cliffhanger. But there's somewhere in that story that they do the same thing, but not to the extent that they do in this
This
one,
is the biggest extent I've seen. And
it seems strange, too, that the cliffhanger is not Sarah Jane with Spider.
Yeah, you think that would be the big reveal.
That, to me, seems like the cliffhanger.
I brought you back here under this pretense because I have the spider on my back. That's a good cliffhanger.
Yeah. But that's not it. It's the, Tommy facing off in the hall. And it seems,
and they sort of saved that surprise for you, too.
It's a pleasant surprise, absolutely, because I didn't quite see it coming, so...
It's just
even though I knew because it's on the cover.
I mean, I no offense to Tommy, who I loved as a character. I thought he was great, but he's extraneous personnel at this point in the story. I mean, yeah, he's going to do great things, and he's going to stop them from coming in and
he's had a great
interrupt
arc.
this meeting. And he's had a great arc. But putting him in peril at the 5th cliffhanger of a 6-part serial...
He's had a great arc. He's reached his end. That's what I think.
I disagree, because here's the thing: we've continued to do, even up to this point. We if you knock out everything retroactively that we've seen after this, where she's in peril. How many times have they put Sarah Jane in peril at the cliffhanger? We've done it. I think what the writer does here is he realizes I'm establishing this character, Tommy, who. I really grew to like the guy. I mean, I liked him from the get-go, but I think you're a little sympathetic with him at first because of his condition. But as he grows and becomes, kind of normalizes as far as intelligence, things like that, and even I think even more advanced in intelligence, you really kind of grow to like this guy. And so by the time that is happening, I'm actually feeling bad or feeling for the guy. I mean, I'm afraid for the guy at that point. So I think that's a calculated move not to put Sarah Jane because it's the go-to. It's the put the companion in peril idea as the cliffhanger. And I think the other thing that you have to think about is if you put the companion in peril, most of the time, especially we as viewers, pretty much know that the companion is going to be all right or going to be saved the day.
Like
but when you put Tommy, somebody that you've just introduced me to, and suddenly I've taken a liking to this character, put that person in peril, then I'm really wondering, is he going to survive? So I think that's actually a better way to do this.
There's a truth to that, but unlike when the Doctor's in the cliffhanger in peril, that I completely write off.
Right.
I know he's going to get out. Companions are a little more, honestly,
because there's history of killing them.
Yeah, they're the companion.
Yeah.
And I love them, and they're going to go on and do great things. And of course, I'm coming at this backwards because I know there's more stories with Sarah Jane. But seeing this for the first time.
Especially
and
if
not
they knew
knowing
it was
that.
Going to be, if some people knew it was going to be Pertwee's last story, maybe it would be her last story too, and there'd be a complete.
But see, here's my thing is
that's almost more
how
of a
many
new
times
thing,
have you put Sarah Jane in? How many times do you put
Doctor had that?
How many times do you put a companion or Sarah Jane in peril and then she's okay?
All of them.
Well, exactly. So if you've done that several times already before, even though let's just say this is 1970 and you're seeing this for the first time, are you going to be more convinced that Sarah Jane has met her fate, or are you going to be more convinced with this new character has met their fate? Because it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If you keep putting Sarah Jane in peril, and then you keep rescuing her, that kind of deadens the suspense of it. Because then you're thinking, okay, well, if the past is any indication, she's going to get out of this. Whereas if you put somebody in that you've developed and you've already developed a relationship with this, character, personal relationship with this character, and then they put them in peril, it seems to be a little more, oh no, I didn't want him to die. Whereas with Sarah Jane, I go, she'll probably be okay. She's gotten out of these kind of things before. I think it works better in this situation.
I think you're looking at it more from a current TV series standpoint. I don't disagree with your logic. I 100% yes, you're right. But one of the we call it a trope, but one of the charms of Doctor Who is that this is how it's going to happen. And I'm right there waiting for it to happen, knowing that it's going to happen. And just as thrilled that it's going to happen in the way that it's going to. I don't know why, but that's part of,
See, and
that's part of the way the show works.
I completely appreciate them for getting away from that trope. Because that is a trope, and I appreciate them saying, "Hey, we're going to do something a little different this time." They don't do. We did go back to that safety net of this is how we put the companion in peril, and then surprise, they're okay. But and they just don't come off until the end of a story. It's
true,
like the complete. Story.
Yeah,
but, not always, but
sometimes.
I would have liked a little more exposition on why Tommy was able to survive the Force lightning blast from the spider guys, and
Yeah, you're kind of left to deduce it on your own and figure out that it's because he was around the crystal, and the crystal, which improved his brain, also apparently improved his body. But they didn't give us any lines saying that, other than it has different effects on different people.
Yeah,
I think that's what it boils down to is the fact that it does have different effects on different people, and I think that somehow Tommy's time with the crystal established an immunity within him. And I think that on just on the surface, I think works for me.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem.
Yeah, no, on the surface it's fine. But if we're going to go to the extent of, let's put Tommy in peril and make you worry that this, it would have been nice if there had been some peril as opposed to, I'm a Superman now because the crystal can't harm me.
We didn't know that.
But
we didn't know that
because
the Doctor had to keep reflecting
it cuts away
a
as
little
it hits
piece.
him the first time.
Yeah.
We don't see the continual blasts and him resisting until we come back on the next one.
Until you come back from such part.
And up until now, I'd seen a lot of people shot by force lightning and died. So at that point, I'm thinking,
or at the very least, rendered heavily unconscious.
Yeah, and Tommy's going to bite it now. Especially when there's 4 of them. There's 4 guys using it. Most of the time, it was only 1. So, one of the things that, and I know we've always talked about how, you just kind of accept the production of Doctor Who. But there were times that I looked at these spiders and I thought, that's a really good effect. And then there was times I looked at these spiders and went, rubber monsters. This is one of those things that I think that a lot of people target this story because of the spiders being a bit goofy. But I think that because the story is so solid, because there's so much Third Doctor goodness in this, and I mean by just kind of inhabiting all of the different styles of the Third Doctor's era, it really comes off as that's such a minor point. I didn't think even people that watch Doctor Who that like classic Doctor Who recognize the same thing, because you kind of again put the rubbery monsters aside and say, hey, that's just the way
if it's a great story, you can usually overlook any production missteps. Which they weren't great, but they weren't bad. I didn't think. I kind of went in expecting, I don't know, because you had mentioned how it was kind of a guilty pleasure, or the production values weren't as great. I was pretty impressed. There was no giant walls of foam or anything. So. The Doctor wasn't running away from bubbles.
It's very much in line with the production values and the special effects of Planet of Spiders. I mean, it was no giant rubber dinosaur from Doctor Who and the Solarians, but
or
the invasion of dinosaurs.
Invasion
for the Third Doctor's era, this has pretty high production value in my opinion.
And I don't know, maybe it's the trauma that I suffered as a child watching the giant spider invasion, but they were still scary.
I didn't have that, but okay. If you say so, Sean.
When they were just kind of on their little daises talking and doing spider politic things, it was like, no big deal, and they were okay. When they scuttled across the floor, and I'm not talking about the bad part but the obvious Comacree. We put this effect in later, but there's that one I don't remember. It was in when the first spider comes through, that they and it appears and it looks terrible, and then it moves, and it just kind of scuttles. And I don't know why, but the legs don't move right, and it's totally not convincing.
Still creepy.
Creepy. Just terrible.
Well,
creepy.
it's clearly a model that's being manipulated on a green screen background with color overlay, but it. I don't know. It's just there were moments that I went. Yeah,
some of the green screen or color overlay wasn't as good as some of the times it looked like they had one of the spiders on a string, and that looked better than when it was overlaid.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I agree. When it's CSO, the overlay, it wasn't as good. Sometimes because even if the spider's legs weren't like articulating correctly, it at least was a physical thing that you saw kind of moving. But it was when it was the CSO effect, and it didn't, because back in the day you couldn't, when you mapped out, or keyed out a object,
thin lines.
Exactly. Every once in a while you get a little bit of overbleed and see some of the matting and stuff.
Yeah, it was the CSO that was probably the weakest part of the effects.
The other thing that I wanted the other weakness of this, and I there's great things about this. I don't want to make it sound like I'm nitpicking on things, but this goes back to the very beginning with the professor that the doctor's investigating telekinesis and telepathy, and he invites this doctor back. The Brig and him go to the show, and he invites this professor back, quote unquote professor, and he decides to do the experiments because he has this, but he doesn't really want to, and he wants to find out why. And so we hook him up to this machine, and we have all this exhibition, and then he dies. And that's all in the course of the first episode. I mean, it's like, what was the point of bringing him in? Because I understand the idea of the crystal getting back because Joe sends the crystal and they open it up and he has a heart attack because of the crystal. But it seemed kind of out of place that we just dragged this guy in here. We're responsible for the doctor's responsible for his death. And then that almost felt like they had to draw the story out a little bit. Or they needed, some sort of.
What it felt like was they needed something for the Doctor and the Brig to do, while Sarah and Mike were setting up the A plot, while the Doctor and the Brig just had this small little B plot that had them palling around at a cabaret,
and then hooking a guy up to machines.
The headphones by. What was it? Boss? Was it Boss?
Boss.
Headphones by Boss.
Because that was the exact same prop.
I love those moments. But when you recognize something that's not supposed to be that prop, but you go, that's that prop. I get giddy with excitement when those happen. I don't know why. Any show.
But the good thing about that story, about that first episode, is the fact that Mike Yates... Actually, through the whole story, Mike, I think it's a bit of a redemption.
That's a great thing about this whole thing.
The dinosaurs.
Yeah. Because after we leave him at the Invasion, and you're like, well, I'm done with him.
Yeah, exactly. What a turncoat. You stabbed everybody in the back. Well, not literally, but figuratively. And, you're ashamed to unit.
Ding, ding, shame.
And so to do this in such a way that, Mike's there, he's investigating this, he realizes or thinks that he can't go to the Doctor or the Brig, so he brings in Sarah Jane to basically be the mediator. And so I think that worked really well. And Dr. Phil mentioned this as well, but it gives him a bit of a redemption before finally going out. I liked that. And then there's Benton. Benton's Benton.
Awesome
Benton's
as always. Doesn't get to do as much as he should have.
Oh, I agree.
So you talk about the Doctor and the Brig, hanging out and electrocuting people like it's,
Tuesday night.
Well, we're stretching the plot. No, you're right. This is Tuesday night at Unit. What do you want to do today, Brig? Well, same thing we do everything, Doc. Let's go to a cabaret, bring a guy back, give him a crystal, and cause a heart attack.
I like to imagine that's part of why the Doctor considers the Brig his best friend. Even though they butted heads during the Third Doctor's era, I bet they went and did the cabaret stuff quite more often than we think.
Well, the Brig sure enjoyed that second act with the woman.
Yeah.
What's funny.
I wonder how much of that may be, and it's a stretch, but when the Doctor gets his quote-unquote comeuppance at the end and says his, thirst for knowledge is what...
Which was a great speech. I really enjoyed that part of it.
But that's his downfall. That's his greatest fear, is that he's too greedy in that regard. I wonder maybe if it was meant to echo because he didn't appear to be extrapolating any genuine information off this ESP.
It was more of testing to see if it was real.
Yeah, well, and he must know that I believe there are races out in the universe that he's probably encountered at this point.
Well, he's partially
have that, and he's telepathic to an extent.
As he's explaining it to the professor, he explains to him that it's a latent power within everybody, within humans, and he kind of the way he conveys it makes it almost sound like he's trying to see why there's a latency in humans
and why it's been activated,
in this particular person. And I think for the realization that, hey, I'm here on Earth, so I might as well kind of do my best to understand humans and humanity, and so it worked.
But I wonder if that speech was maybe meant to kind of bring that back in full circle, and because maybe he feels directly responsible for that guy's death.
Oh, I think he does, because he says that in the second story. He says, I'm responsible for his death.
If he hadn't meddled, the guy would be alive, and so now he's gotten to that point where it's like my quest for knowledge is what killed this poor guy.
Right. Anything else on this story before we move on?
I think it's a thoroughly enjoyable one. I think if it seems like we're nitpicking it, I think it's all just because there's so much to like. That
so much good there.
There's so much good there. And
it almost makes the nitpicky things stand out a little bit more because everything else is so great. And then these little small things are kind of like, But
I think it's one of my favorites. And despite the fact that it's a regeneration episode, because sometimes those can be a bit of a downer, it's one of those ones, though, that I think I grow to like more and more each time. I think the first time that I saw it, I wasn't quite sure what I felt about it. By the second, third viewing, and then certainly by the fourth, I was like, this is elevated to one of my favorites. So,
and the greatest chase
ever.
Don't laugh.
And Dr. Phil sent us some audio about the music in this episode, so make sure to stay around afterwards and hear what he has to say about it.
Yep. Shall we move on to the
comic?
Fourth issue of the Four Doctors Titan comic.
Which released this week. Last week.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
On Wednesday.
I'm sorry. Comics are Wednesday.
Yes. Well, I get them Tuesday, but
but
I'm in the industry, so that doesn't count. It released Wednesday. So we get really the info dump of the comic.
That's what this issue is, the big info dump, and then them taking him off to try to escape, but not really
the
succeeding.
Evil ancient 12th Doctor revealing his plan, and the Doctor's making glib about it, and yet nothing happened, and they get captured. And
trying to escape.
Not very well, but they
hang upside down.
I really like the idea that the 10th Doctor recognizes that they've been touching him, and there's been no Blinovich limitation effect.
Yeah,
and I like the idea that the Doctor, who I think really of all three of them is really kind of the action Doctor, is the one that causes the distraction, and the 11th Doctor is the one that has to kind of keep them talking while the 11th Doctor is doing his thing. Which, if anybody can talk, it's the 11th Doctor, and. While it doesn't really help the core characters any, it does allow Gabby and Alice to escape. And so I thought that was very cleverly done. Mm-hmm. We obviously get the info dump of why the Vord is doing this and why they've recruited Ancient Doctor, as you just talked about.
Which is nice. I like that idea of they don't want the Time Lords to come back. Yeah. That's kind of a recurring theme that's what Trenzalore was all about. I mean, they wanted the Time Lords to stay locked away. And I liked the fact that it wasn't because the Time War would restart or they would be going to war with them. It was the fact that they got advanced because of everything, and they didn't want to lose that advancement. Mm-hmm. That was a really cool idea.
And it was also nice to get a confirmation as to why 9 is not in this.
Yeah.
That it's you three are the ones that were most likely.
The guy with the nose. Why the nose? Why didn't it say the guy with the ears?
I don't know.
That's what I always focused on.
But you were the three that would have gone looking for Gallifrey.
Right, exactly.
So that was a nice bit there. And then we end on a terrible cliffhanger.
Oh man! I hope they can undo it.
Well, that's the interesting thing is it kind of made me wonder about Titan's motives as far as the companions. Is this really? I mean, to drop the ball here or drop the bomb here, it really, in all appearances, looks like Gabby dies.
Alice
Dies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She's got blood on her face.
Yeah,
and
she's but I like it was a really neat device, and it was a really neat setup between the two as they were trying to figure out what would the Doctor do, what do we need to do, well, this is what we have to do.
How can we save them?
Alice comes up with the idea, well, we've got to get to the TARDIS. If we get to the TARDIS, then we've got to convince the TARDIS to take us to where the doctors are. And then she says, but there's a chance that both of us won't make it, so I'm going to go first, and if I don't, and she tells Alice, be sure you tell the Doctor, what was it she told her to tell the Doctor?
Said, thanks for showing me.
Yeah, and then Gabby turns around and says, pretty much the same thing. Okay, well, if I don't make it and you do, make sure the same. And so Alice takes off first and is warned several times by the Vern to stop, which I'm surprised they gave her even a chance. And then
since they were going to kill her anyways.
And then they shoot her, and then you get that scene where she's laying there and she's got blood on her face, and she looks dead.
Yeah,
and it's a wonderfully done artistic choice to
not show
the blast.
And even when we show her lying there, just giving you kind of the face shot, I thought that was nicely done.
But Gabby's reaction to it,
yeah. So then Gabby, when she's running, we just glossed over everything else and went right to the action. But then as Gabby runs, she says, "What would the Doctor do?" And so she hesitates that moment because she thought, well, yeah, he would turn and try to.
Okay, I gave up.
Give them the impression he was giving up, and then he would go, and then that's what she does.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, then she gets around that corner and realizes she wasn't able to pick up the 10th Doctor's sonic, because that was another thing I thought was cool, is that the 10th Doctor was trying to get somebody to take the sonic screwdriver. For some reason, we're not quite sure, but then she's got the comics. She managed to pick up the comics, and I kept thinking, why are we still carrying the comics around? What is
There's gotta
this?
Be something to it.
And
I
not
didn't
only
even
carrying
think there's
them,
something to it. I'm thinking, this is going to be silly. So she starts to open them, and I thought, was she going to find some secret in the comic? Are we going to turn this into The Girl Who Met Doctor Who and make this a really meta object? And she opens it up, and then her expression, and then you hear the scream and the Vord run around, and they still don't show us. What a great cliffhanger for a story.
Yeah.
I was like, what is
to
it?
go into the finale.
What's in the bag of comics? So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought this was on pace. Point of action from beginning to end. There was no downtime. There was very little exhibition. The only exhibition we get is the info dump about why
which
the
you
Vord's
gotta have somewhere,
which was
and issue 4
necessary
is the
and
great
placed
place to do
very,
it.
very well in this story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is the first time in all of the issues that we've read so far that I really felt there a sufficient amount of peril.
Yeah,
what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I liked about this.
Well, and they stepped away with what you complained about last week of them barbing at each other,
exactly,
and finishing
and they
each other.
didn't finish it. There was at one point that 10 starts something, 11 did, but it was appropriately done because it was them coming up with the plan, conceiving the plan. I love how the 12th Doctor is number one barbing with himself. And just being real adamant about, this is not what I would do, and you completely took something in my life, the type of man that I was at that point, and went with it, and that's not the type of man that I turned out to be. And I love the fact that they're focusing on the fact that the 12th Doctor, even in Series 8, had this shift of the type of person he was, from the point where he asks, Clara, am I a good man, to the end where he forgives Clara for what she was going to do and didn't end up doing because it was all part of a hallucination. He changed over that course of the season, and this steps back and shows you the Doctor we had at the beginning, the Doctor you had.
Shows that he did grow and change.
He did grow and he did change,
and he is a good man.
I love that, and I love the fact that Clara, when she starts to apologize for putting him in this situation, this is all my fault, and he says, oh, that's just like you to take credit for doing something wrong when it's my fault. And I thought, you go, 12. That was awesome. So there was so much good in this story.
Yeah.
And like I say, most of these comics, I kind of have a feel for how long it takes me to read a comic. And the first several issues, I could read it in about 20 minutes. I was done with this in 10 minutes. And I kept going, does this have left pages? No, it's because it clipped along and I was reading so fast going, what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? It was wonderful. I loved it.
I especially like the part where, as they're making their
Not underselling it this week, boy.
Yeah,
I'm going to push through.
as they're making their grand escape, when 10 says, you should feel a little nervy about shooting me, or because, the part of the grand plan is what if I don't survive, and throws himself off the bridge, and I'm like,
And then 11,
flip the page.
11 almost callously but reassuringly says, he'll be okay. He knows what he's doing. And I was like, what?
Because you can't argue with the logic. No, if he jumps off and dies, it's like, well, this is different. So yeah, I just I don't know.
I look forward to seeing how it resolves.
Yeah, I think maybe that's it. I think maybe
that's
just
the
now that
because we're near the climax.
And I had to go back and read when the Vord Doctor is giving the grand plan. He's the Vord Doctor now. When he's giving the grand plan and he's explaining how we got to this point, I had to go back and read it twice to make sure that I really understood it and that it works.
That was my only issue with this is as I kept looking at this and he was telling what he was doing, I kept thinking the what was the machine that they got from the Daleks? The continuity bomb or continuity machine was set up and it showed the different splintering aspects of the Doctor's lives and what could have been and what is in a different reality or continuity. And I kept thinking, but that's the point, is that we know how it really went and we know how things really happened in the continuity that we're in. So how are you remembering all of these things that didn't really happen, that happened in a different continuity or a different timeline? How are you remembering these kind of things? Because they came to this point from a different continuity. And it wasn't until he started the whole, the grandstanding about, I have written my own creation, I thought, you know what, that does work.
It does.
Because if he's the cause and effect for this, then he would remember it because he's the one that created it. In the future, he created his own past. And so that's why, it does sort of work. Now, where it won't work is in the next issue where they have to resolve this because we know they will. And it will unravel everything. And I'm wondering about a paradoxical event, how they'll handle that situation. But for the all intents and purposes of how this is working now, it did when he got to the point where he said, I've created my own story, I've created my own myself, I've created my creation, or I'm the creator of my own story. And I thought, that little really drop worked for me. I thought, okay, this is why you remember this, because this was the setup for you to create all of this to happen.
Yeah. And the fact that he was from the alternate timeline anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. There was a part of me, I think I was kind of hoping that Peter Cushing would have wound up being the bad guy after all that, but he could have been the fourth Doctor from an alternate timeline.
I hope War Doctor shows back up again.
Yeah.
Maybe War Doctor will show back up to save the day, since we keep calling this the Four Doctors, although...
Well, and he was working with the Vord initially. And he's the one that crashed the Dalek ship on...
And they were very grateful of the fact that he was doing what he was doing. The Vord were, anyway, so...
I kind of wondered if this final Vord, that shot at Gabby, was actually the War Doctor.
Oh, damn it, Keith. That's a good idea.
So it was actually...
He's going to reveal himself in the next issue?
Yeah.
Darn you.
And so Gabby didn't actually die.
Darn you and your forward thinking. If he pulls off a mask and it's the War Doctor, I'm going to be really mad now.
Hey, it's no different than you saying River is
I guess
Amy
that's
and
true.
Rory's
At least
daughter.
this will be resolved in an issue and not in a whole entire season.
At least we can figure this out next week.
Yes.
So if
In
you're
a couple of days, as a matter of fact.
If you're following along, the final issue of the Four Doctors event is next week, so make sure you go out and pick it up, and we'll be reviewing that, of course, on the cast.
We will, indeed.
What else is coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up on the schedule, obviously, the Fifth Doctor.
Keith took it over because I said it wrong last week.
Yeah,
That's right. You
can't,
say it right.
You can't be trusted. Obviously, we'll be doing the 5th issue of Titan Comics, the Four Doctors. We are also going to be, for Friday Night Who, watching Darkwater Death in Heaven. So if you are one of the unlucky individuals who has to work or it's not coming to your town and you can't get to the big screen to go see it, it's okay. You can just queue it up. It's on Netflix. And
it won't be in 3D. But
won't be in 3D. Yeah. We can put our 3D glasses on and pretend. You get a headache. But we'll be doing that. So Friday at midnight on the 11th of September, Darkwater Death in Heaven. And then we will be reviewing for episode number 246, in addition to the Titan Comics, the last 2 Eighth Doctor episodes of his first season, Human Resources, Part 1 and 2, which is episodes 7 and 8 of the Big Finish Eighth Doctor Adventures. And that'll be the last Big Finish we get to do for a while, because obviously the week after that
will be
Season 9.
Straight into it.
Series
all.
9.
Yeah.
So I'm still waiting to find out for sure the actual time of the next week's Friday Night Who, which will not be at midnight. We will be doing The Rescue with William Hartnell.
No, that's next week. That's the week following.
The following,
that's
the
following week.
following
Not this Friday.
Not this Friday, but the next.
Yeah, gotcha. We're into the next
because
week
that will
now.
be at TopCon, which, again, if you're in the area or coming to Topeka, very much like to see you there. But then we'll be obviously doing Magician's Apprentice the following week for our reviews. And more schedule, hopefully, will be posted soon as the BBC gets us some episode titles.
Yeah. We will. We certainly should mention. Please continue to support us on Patreon. We do have sites on our website that also you can lend your support to. I do want to mention that we are now an affiliate of Entertainment Earth. So if you have anything that you want to do, we've got a click-through link on our webpage. We are now an affiliate of Entertainment Earth, and if you buy products from Entertainment Earth, after clicking through our link, then some of those proceeds come back into this podcast as well.
Cool.
And they have cool stuff.
They do
Yeah,
have cool
they
stuff.
really do.
And I've got us linked to the Doctor Who section. So,
And a small note for Patreon subscribers that we've been promising you your gift baskets
for months.
for months. I have finished the last piece of the gift basket, so they will go into production and go into the mail shortly.
All right. If that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
All praise to the Great One.
All praise to the Great One.
All praise to the Great One.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
The moment approaches.
What moment?
The moment I have been waiting for. The moment of truth, if you will forgive the cliché. The moment of truth for us both. You know what you have to do?
No,
I think you do, my son. What is it you most fear?
That fear I can feel in your mind. You are not accustomed to feeling frightened, are you, Doctor? You are very wise to be afraid of me.
Is there no other way?
None.
Give me the crystal.
What are you going to do?
Take the crystal to the Great One.
But you told me that if you went back there, the Cave of Crystal would destroy you.
Nevertheless, I have to go. I've brought you the crystal. Now, why don't you just take it and leave the humans in peace? Both here and on Earth.
You think I care for the puny plans of my subjects? Earth, one paltry planet among millions. Give me the crystal. I thirst for it. I ache for it.
Well, why is it so important to you?
You see this web of crystal above my head? It reproduces the pattern of my brain. One perfect crystal and it will be complete. That is the perfect crystal I need.
And then?
My every thought will resonate within the web and grow in power until...
But you've built a positive feedback circuit. You're trying to increase your mental powers to infinity.
Exactly. I shall be the ruler of the entire universe.
Now listen to me. Listen. I haven't got much time left. What you're trying to do is impossible. If you complete that circuit, the energy will build up and up until it cannot be contained. You will destroy yourself.
You waste the little time remaining to you. Even now the cave of crystal is destroying the cells of your body. I will grant you one last favor. You may watch the completion of my triumph before you die. Now I am total power. All praise to the Great One.
Stop! Don't you see what's happening to you?
All praise to the Great One. All praise to me. Bow down before me, planets. Bow down, stars. Bow down, oh galaxies, and worship the Great One. The me, the great, all-powerful me.
Spiders?
Dr. Phil again with another installment of Adventures in Time, Space, and Music. In this segment, we'll be looking at the music of Doctor's composer Dudley Simpson, looking at his work on serial Triple Z, Story 74, Planet of Spiders, a 6-part story which originally aired between the 4th of May and the 8th of June 1974 on BBC One. About Planet of the Spiders. In the last and most dangerous adventure of the Pertwee years, what begins in an innocuous research into ESP turns into a deadly mind battle, with the terrifying spiders from the planet Metebelis III pitted against the Doctor, his friends, and Time Lord Keanpo. At a Tibetan-style spiritual retreat deep in rural England, a clandestine circle of chanting brethren unknowingly calls upon the evil powers of the Metebelis spiders, whose quest for the perfect blue crystal leads them straight to the Doctor. He must travel to the alien planet to meet the Great One, merciless ruler over spiders and human slaves, who plans to take over Earth. The future of the entire universe is in the Doctor's hands, but if he is to face the fear the Great One sees in his mind, then he must face the certainty of total destruction. Could this be the Time Lord's final death? In Planet of the Spiders, producer Barry Letts was about to say farewell to Doctor Who with his lead actor Jon Pertwee and his script editor Terence Dix. Letts had a keen interest in Buddhist philosophy, and this played into his uncredited influence on the script by writer Robert Sloman. This was initially to be a very different story, as actor Roger Delgado, at the end of the production of Frontier in Space, was prepared to move on from the role of the Master. The swan song story that would have meant to have ended Series 11 would have defined the relationship to a much deeper level with Delgado's master and would have ended with the sacrifice to help him save the Doctor. Robert Sloman had delivered some initial scripts entitled The Final Game, but this was cut short by Roger Delgado's untimely death in Turkey, leading to an entirely different story being devised, incorporating certain Buddhist principles. As Delgado's death had been a profound impact on actor Jon Pertwee, it has often been considered a significant factor in his decision to leave Doctor Who. Considering how closely knit the production team was, as much a family as the unit team, Kismet Delgado, Roger's widow, would go on to play the role of the Queen of the Spiders of Metebelis III. According to his autobiographical book, I Am the Doctor, Pertwee notes about having extreme back problems as his tenure in the role was drawing to a close, often having to wear a surgical brace. As his departure story, John was indulged with a number of vehicles to operate, including a chase scene featuring Bessie, the Doctor's car known as the Whomobile, a vehicle we never see again in Doctor Who, a police car, a gyrocopter, a hovercraft, and a boat.
Get after him, Lethbridge Stewart. I'll contact you by RT.
Okay, Jack.
working. Can you hear me? Over.
Loud and clear, Doctor. Have you had a sight of him? Over.
Yes, he's getting away from you. Take the next right fork. You might cut him off. Out.
Creating a great sense of continuity with the following story, Robot, filming on the two stories ran, at times, concurrently, meaning that at least in regards to production, that both John Pertwee and Tom Baker, appearing here uncredited, were filming the role at the same time. This also meant that cast members Nicholas Courtney, Elizabeth Sladen, and John Levine were rushing back and forth between productions of two simultaneous stories. While this story is a story of lasts, it's also a story of firsts. The term regeneration is used for the first time in Planet of the Spiders, and Kyanpo Rinpoche is the first Time Lord, other than the Doctor, to be seen on screen regenerating. Planet of the Spiders is the first story since the 10th planet that the Doctor is seen regenerating on screen, something that would remain the norm for all of the following Doctors save for the 6th and 8th Doctors. Filming for Planet of the Spiders covered quite a number of locations, ranging from Tidmarsh Manor, Bloomfield Hatch Lane and Mortimer Station in Berkshire, Membury Airfield and Le Marchant Barracks in Wiltshire, River Severn, Westbury-on-Severn in Gloucestershire, as well as TC1, 6 and 8 at the BBC Television Centre, as well as Shepherd's Bush in London. Even with all of the exterior filming, the majority of the exterior shots for Metebelis 3 were all done with color separation overlay, CSO is known, or chroma key. On to the music in Planet of the Spiders. This story is not without its use of stock music. While the use of Deben Batra's Lama Chapra has been well documented, To Entertain has included information on further uses of stock music in Planet of the Spiders, specifically from Episode 1. During the opening theater sequences with the Doctor and the Brigadier, 3 pieces are used, written by P. Gerard and published by Barry Music. These pieces, again stock music, were entitled Sneaky Chic, Front Row, and Hunted, the last being the entrance music for Professor Clegg. Regarding Dudley Simpson's original score to the serial of Planet of the Spiders, the amount of music in the story varies greatly. Simpson recorded the studio musicians at Lime Grove Studios, and according to the BBC's paperwork on the episode, Episode 1 had 4 minutes and 32 seconds worth of music, Episode 2 10 minutes and 52 seconds, with an additional musical credit to special sound designer Dick Mills, at least in the paperwork. Episode 3 went on to have 5 minutes and 50 seconds worth of music, Episode 4 4 minutes and 30, Episode 5 3 minutes, and Episode 6 3 minutes and 20 seconds worth of music, with the iconic ending also appearing in the opening of the following serial, Serial 4A, Story 75, Robot.
Now, wait a moment.
Look, Brigadier, look! I think it's starting.
Well, here we go again.
While a great deal of Simpson's score looks backward, with many moments reminiscing of a favorite score of mine, Frontier in Space, there is much in the score to Planet of the Spiders that's looking forward as well. While the instrumentation is almost identical to Robot regarding the mixture of acoustic and radiophonic elements, there are many similarities musically as well. In Planet of the Spiders, we have many of the stalwarts we associate later with classic Tom Baker-era Doctor Who scores, clarinet and bass clarinet, brass instruments such as trumpet and horn, as well as solo cello. As with the score to the following story, Robot, the synthetic elements are well married to the acoustic ones, and Dudley Simpson excels in creating a score that is mysterious while having a tinge of solemnity. One interesting element stands out in Planet of the Spiders is the use of percussion. A South American gourd rattle was used to create the musical sting to represent the spiders in this story. This is mostly credited to session musician Tristan Fry, member of the percussion section of the London Symphony at the time, who was an in-demand session drummer and percussionist, and still is to this day. Drummer and percussionist Tristan Fry was involved in the performance of Simpson's score here. Having had an early career with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, he went on to be an important member of many ensembles, including Nash, Fires of London, and the London Sinfonietta. Currently, Tristan Fry is principal timpanist for Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, appearing on many of their recordings and in live performance. As a drummer, Tristan Fry is one of the busiest session drummers at the time, and as the DVD's infotext provides, he had performed with the Beatles, Elton John, Frank Sinatra, and Cliff Richard. Between the years of 1979 and 1995, Fry was a member of the crossover fusion group Sky, most famous for its early 1980s hit Toccata. Returning to Dudley Simpson's score, some of the harmonic language we've enjoyed from Simpson from the previous series is beginning to change a great deal here. There are sections that are, orchestrationally, predicting the bleak textures of Series 12 stories such as Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks. Take a listen to this example here.
Here, what are you doing?
What happened, Sergeant? Somebody attack you?
Yes, he's got that crystal of yours, Doctor. Come on.
Other examples, specifically regarding the expansive melodies performed on synthesizers, are reminiscent of scores from as early as Series 8. Planet of the Spiders, just as Robot that follows it, is on the precipice of a large tonal shift in Doctor Who. As with story tone, the musical tone is already shifting towards what we would hear in the Hinchcliffe era, but minus the visual darkness and ominous storytelling that would follow in those future seasons. This is a score that's already looking to the future of Doctor Who, much more than Robot, which is seemingly more nostalgic to the previous Unit era. As much as with the opening sequence seeming to be more of Tom Baker's era, there's a lot that's reminiscent of Series 18, as we have a hint of the era that is to come with a new title sequence then as well. While production teams change from time to time and story emphasis changes from era to era, it's amazing to see that while the Doctor changes his form ever so often, that Dudley Simpson, one of the most long-term figures in the show, remains one of the most overlooked and underappreciated musicians in Doctor Who, considering how often his style continues to regenerate. Hopefully, as we look back on the nearly 50-year history of Doctor Who, many more of us will continue to examine how much Simpson changes, and that the complaints leveled at him by John Nathan Turner about the sameness of his musical style is demonstrated in Planet of the Spiders that he is a person who continues to reinvent and reinvigorate atmosphere, style, and music in Doctor Who. Regarding the audio and DVD releases, as with many of Simpson's scores, master tapes do not exist of Planet of the Spiders from which a commercial audio release could be made, at least regarding the music. On the other hand, To Entertain offers up another exceptional restoration thanks to the Doctor Who restoration team. To Entertain released Planet of the Spiders on DVD in April of 2011 in the United Kingdom and later in May 2011 in the United States and Canada. The audio commentary for Planet of the Spiders includes the late Barry Letts, Nicholas Courtney, and Elizabeth Sladen, as well as Richard Franklin and script editor Terrence Dix. While Disc 1 includes the restored version of the story, the second disc includes many excellent extras as well as the unrestored Omnibus edition of Planet of the Spiders, and along with its trailer, the Omnibus edition runs a bit over 105 minutes. Among the value-added material, or VAM, the extras if you will, is The Final Curtain, a detailed look at John Pertwee's swan song, narrated by Glenn Allen, including interview material from actors John Pertwee and Richard Franklin, producer-director Barry Letts, script editor Terrence Dix, designer Rochelle Selwyn, visual effects assistant Matt Irvin, and Revival series actor and author Mark Gatiss. Also included is John Kane Remembers, a nearly 13-minute retrospective by actor John Kane, who played the role of Tommy, whose character is reborn through the Metebelis crystal. An ideal inclusion in this release is Directing Who, where producer Barry Letts has the chance to reminisce on his time directing various episodes of Doctor Who from numerous eras. Also included in this release is another installment of Now and Then, looking at the many locations from Planet of the Spiders. And as also with all of the recent releases from 2 Entertain, we have a great selection of PDF materials, a coming soon trailer, program subtitles, subtitle production notes, one of my favorite inclusions in the DVD range, and photo galleries. Ravaged by the radiation from the Metabolus crystals, the Third Doctor collapses, leaving with some of the most dramatic and touching dialogue from his tenure in the role, making sure that while Planet of the Spiders is a flawed story, Jon Pertwee meets a heroic end as the Doctor, handing the reins to Tom Baker, who is sure to carry on Doctor Who as one of the great television institutions of our time, thanks to the popularity and strength of Jon Pertwee's Third Doctor and his very compelling portrayal.
Got lost in the time vortex. The TARDIS brought me home.
Oh, Doctor, why did you have to go back?
I had to face my fear, Sarah. I had to face my fear. That was more important than just going on living.
Please, don't die.
A tear? Sarah Jane? No, don't cry. While there's life, there's...
It's all right. He is not dead.
Oh, no. I don't think I can take much more.
I'm sorry to have startled you, my dear. The Doctor is alive.
No, you're wrong. He's dead.
All the cells of his body have been devastated by the Metabolus crystals, but you forget. He is a Time Lord. I will give the process a little push and the cells will regenerate. He will become a new man.
Literally?
Of course, he will look quite different.
Not again.
And it will shake up the brain cells a little. You may find his behavior somewhat erratic.
Well, when will all this happen?
Well, there's no time like the present, is there? Goodbye. Look after him.
Now, wait a moment.
Look, Brigadier, look. I think it's starting.
Well, here we go again.